Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
What's up, Doom Nation, and welcome back. You are listening to the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, it's Skaggs and the Captain. How you doing today, buddy-o? What do we got on the agenda?
Been a little bit better after our weekend.
Yeah, I felt better, that's for sure.
I was just telling the captain before we started recording, I had to go run and get some water because I've had a raspy voice. The captain and I were out in Montauk with the boys over the weekend. Had a great
Nelk boys
time with the Nelk boys and the Legion of Doom. We were out there in Montauk, Long Island for the weekend, partying, having a good time. Yearly trip with the guys. Shout out to them. So I'm here, surviving. Back to talking about
reality.
Yeah.
And it was quite the interesting weekend, from RFK being absolutely a jacked brick shithouse to a coup taking place in Russia.
Yeah. So like while we were partying with the Nelk boys and getting hammered, that's what was going on. Like a mercenary group, the Wagner Group, was attempting some sort of coup in Russia, heading to Moscow. So that's going to be kind of like the main topic of our episode. We'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about a leak of an audio recording of former President Trump.
Yes.
They got on CNN, and it has to do with his the document scandal, right? The raid at Mar-a-Lago, all the things, that they're trying to pin him down with. We're going to play that and talk about that.
Yep.
So those are two main topics, some tweets of the week. Anything else you want to add, Captain?
I mean, in other news, little short tidbits that, as they unfold, we'll get into it more. We're going to have to talk about the Biden crime family. Joe Biden has officially lawyered up. And whatever he says from here on out about the Second Amendment is bullshit, that he wants stricter gun laws because his own son pled guilty to a gun charge and is walking scot-free.
Slap on the wrist.
Yes.
Yeah, as we know that these are just rules for, but not rules for me with anything else. And as me and Garrett talked about, like, I don't really give a shit about Hunter Biden's gun charges. I think all gun laws are unconstitutional. It's the other stuff that they've ignored this whole time. But it is worth pointing out, like you're saying, how there's like two-tier justice system, even when it comes to something like guns.
So when you side with Joe Biden for stricter gun laws, just understand he doesn't believe those stricter gun laws should apply to his only son, his crackhead son. His crackhead, prostitute fucking, stripper marrying, crackhead son. And then a little more good news for Doom Nation out there. We've been following the Bud Light demise of Anheuser-Busch. And what was that number, Skaggs? Let's share that.
Yeah, what are they up to? I think 28% now. They're
28
down,
point something percent. Yeah.
It's not going to recover.
Nope.
I saw over the weekend they had a float in Canada at one of the Pride parades in Canada. So like, look, at this point, they might as well just quadruple down and just go back to it, right? Because
this is their new market. Let's see how it works out for you. Bold move, Con. Let's see how it plays out.
Exactly. So we'll keep an eye on all those things, especially the Biden crime family.
Yeah, that'll be a whole episode soon.
That will be. One little funny caveat I'll add to the Hunter Biden thing. I learned that he claimed prostitutes on his taxes. So, I got to hand it to the guy. I'd love to hang out with him. He sounds like a great fucking time, and he has balls. He put that shit on his fucking tax return. Yeah. He claimed a loss, I guess, in terms of escort services.
When we got back from Montauk, I felt like Hunter Biden.
All right, fair enough. So yeah, like we were saying, like while we were out there on Saturday partying with the old Nelk boys, a lot of interesting shit was going on over in Russia. We have been covering the war in Ukraine pretty closely, right, Kat? Me and you have been on top of the ball. Yep. I think it's the most important topic, most important issue, maybe going into the next presidential election. So the Wagner Group, I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the logistics of the war. I've kind of tried to keep an eye on these things and watch like the tactical stuff going on. I don't know how familiar you are, Cap, with the Wagner Group and all that stuff.
I'm not familiar with the Wagner Group. I've been reading up on it since this weekend.
Sure. Of course, right. Something big happens. You got to.
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
So I'm a little bit familiar with the Wagner Group. They're essentially like a mercenary group. They were really big in fighting in the Donbass area and then in Bakhmut. Which Russia took, which they took a couple, maybe a month or two ago. So I've known of them. I've known what they are, but and I've always kind of thought like it's kind of odd. Like you just have this group that's not really loyal to the Russian army, but they're also fighting in the war on the side of the Russians and the Russian army. It's an interesting concept in general, but they essentially launched a coup or an overthrow of the Russian government on Saturday. We could get into like what really happened later on, but I kind of wanted the theme of the episode for us to explain to you, like, who the fuck are these guys, especially the leader, Prigozhin here. And then we'll get into kind of like our conspiracy theories and whatnot after that. As I feel like this is a topic or an area where most Americans don't know much about the X's and O's of the war in Ukraine.
You're not allowed to. Anytime we share something about Russia on TikTok, we get in trouble for it.
Yeah, that's true. And it's just interesting caveat here.
Yeah.
So the two speeches that Putin gave around this, both of them got taken down from TikTok. One of them I appealed and it got put back up, but they were just speeches of Putin, him giving the speech around the issue. Like, you can't even just, like, remember, man, back when COVID started, like, I knew this was going to be a slippery slope and it would eventually apply to war. But now, like, I can't even, cover a president of another country giving a speech when he was almost just overthrown. I mean,
there was another podcast talking about that. I forget whether if you sent it to me or if I was listening to somebody say it, and they were like, no one is covering like what Putin is saying. Like, that's part of this war. He's Putin,
don't hear his side.
Yeah. Russia man bad. So, okay. So let's see what he's saying. Like, if he's so bad, but good old American media, we can't even hear that, or, social media, we can't even share it.
Yeah. Too dangerous.
Yep.
So, going to do a little reading here, kind of let's set the table. Who are these guys? What are they doing? So this is from the AP. The mercenary chief who urged an uprising against Russia's generals has long ties to Putin. And let's go down here. Sorry.
No shit, he has long ties to Putin.
Yeah. So the millionaire mercenary chief who long benefited from the powerful patronage of Vladimir Putin has moved into the global spotlight with a dramatic rebellion against Russia's military that challenged the authority of Putin himself. Yevgeny Prigozhin is a 62-year-old owner of the Kremlin-allied Wagner Group, a private army of inmate recruits and other mercenaries that has fought some of the deadliest battles in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On Friday, Prigozhin abruptly escalated months of scathing criticism of Russia's conduct of the war, calling for an armed uprising to oust the defense minister and then rolling towards Moscow with his soldiers for hire. Little geography lesson, Ukraine and Russia are very close together. Moscow is not far away from like where the war is happening. You could probably make it from like the border of Ukraine, the Donbass area to Moscow in a couple hours if you drove and like there was no traffic. So essentially where the Wagner Group was hanging out in Ukraine, they just got in their fucking trucks, got on the highway, the M4 highway that goes up to Moscow, and they started driving up there. Not like an impossible drive, not like a overwhelming task to turn around and head in a different direction. As Putin's government declared a counterterrorism alert and scrambled to seal off Moscow checkpoints, Prigozhin just as abruptly stood down the following day. As a part of the deal to defuse the crisis, he agreed to move to Belarus and was seen late Saturday retreating with his forces from Rostov-on-Don, a city in southern Russia where they had taken over the military headquarters. It's unclear what was next for Prigozhin, a former prison inmate, hot dog vendor, and restaurant owner who has riveted world attention. This is one of the funniest fucking parts of the story you're going to enjoy, Cap.
Hot dog vendor.
Putin's chef. Prigozhin and Putin go way back, both born in Leningrad, what is now St. Petersburg. During the final years of the Soviet Union, Prigozhin served time in prison, 10 years by his own admission, which is basically what everybody had to serve in the Soviet Union at some point, so it's not special in any way whatsoever. Although he does not say what it was for. Afterward, he owned a hot dog stand and then fancy restaurants that drew interest from Putin. In his first term, the Russian leader took then French President Jacques Chirac to dine at one of them. The guy went from a fucking hot dog salesman to the general of a mercenary unit in Ukraine. I mean, I don't know that much about the guy, but that is a pretty badass fucking story.
That's definitely some Russian mafioso shit.
Yep. Started from the bottom. Now we hear.
Yep.
Vladimir Putin saw how I built business out of a kiosk. He saw that I don't mind serving the esteemed guests because they were my guests, Prigozhin recalled in an interview published in 2011. Let's see. Let's skip over to the military. Prigozhin also owns the Wagner Group, a Kremlin-allied mercenary force that has come to play a central role in the war in Ukraine. Let's see. The United States, European Union, and United Nations and others say the mercenary force has involved itself in conflicts in countries across Africa in particular. Wagner fighters allegedly provide security for national leaders or warlords in exchange for lucrative payments, often including a share of gold or other natural resources. U.S. officials say Russia may have also been using Wagner's work in Africa to support its war in Ukraine. That's something I've heard of as well. In Ukraine, Prigozhin's mercenaries have become a major force in the war, fighting as counterparts to the Russian army in battles with Ukrainian forces. That includes Wagner's fighters taking Bakhmut, the city where the bloodiest and longest battles have taken place. By last month, Wagner Group and Russian forces appeared to have largely won Bakhmut, a victory with strategically slight importance for Russia, despite the cost in lives. That's a hysterical statement and shows you the bias of this article, because Zelensky himself was saying how important Bakhmut was, and they had, the Ukrainians had committed a lot to like defending Bakhmut, and then the moment they lost it, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's not that important."
Yeah, it's
anyway.
not important. Not important.
Yeah.
This is propaganda.
Shows you
That's
how
my
like
problem
war
with this war.
works.
We're not going to get anything of proper information out of it. There probably wasn't even a coup.
Yeah. What you can't take out of it though, in a situation like that, where like there's a thing happening and one side's like, "This is so important. We have to hold this location," and then as soon as they lose it, they're like, "Oh yeah, it wasn't that important anyway." You just believe the opposite in a sense, right? Like you could just tell, like, okay, it was important then to some extent or another. Prigozhin has said that 20,000 of his men died in Bakhmut, about half of them inmates he recruited from Russia's prisons. What is the group's reputation? Western countries and UN experts have accused Wagner Group mercenaries of committing numerous human rights abuses throughout Africa. Blah, 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 blah. Human rights abuses, blah, 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 blah. Raging against Russia's general.
Can't imagine they're a great group of guys.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. So we're setting the stage here. I know
basically all pirates.
Yeah, right. In a sense, they're a mercenary group of pirates. I know that a lot of them are just former convicts and criminals that get like these deals. We're like, hey, you want out of jail, you fucking sign up,
Yeah.
And you will
become expendable.
Yeah, become an expendable in a sense. So as his forces fought and died in mass in Ukraine, Prigozhin raged against Russia's military brass. In a video released by his team last month, Prigozhin stood next to rows of bodies, I guess, in the poor writing here. He said were those of Wagner fighters. He accused Russia's regular military of incompetence and of starving his troops of the weapons and ammunition they needed to fight. These are someone's fathers and someone's sons, Prigozhin said then. The scum that doesn't give us ammunition will eat their guts in hell. So I'll kind of wrap up reading here for a minute. Prigozhin, he's a mercenary leader, right? He's like a general that is fighting against Ukraine. He's leading an army of criminals to an extent, of mercenary criminals. And what I gather is that he was upset that they weren't giving him enough stuff. He wanted to fight Ukraine more. I know that's been a lot of his criticism going forward. Like, hey, I want to do more here. I want to kill more Ukrainians. I want to get more involved. And they weren't giving me enough stuff. Another thing I know, just as a thing, and I'll let you go, Cap. I know the past month or two, I read some articles previously before any of this happened that Putin and the Russian military brass wanted the Wagner Group to sign official contracts with the Russian military, like to kind of take away them being
their mercenary group,
mercenary force, and make them proper.
Yeah.
So this maybe was brewing a little bit where they're like, no, fuck you. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
And they kind of got to a point where they had to try to do something. Otherwise, they're going to be folded into the Russian military proper. So a lot going on here. I don't know, man. What did you take so far on Prigozhin?
I don't know. It's interesting. It's hard to decipher because, like I was just saying, the amount of propaganda and lies and deception that comes out of all this, it's hard to decipher it. So right now, it's really just educational. Let's see how it continues to unfold. What shocks me most, I mean, my first question, and we'll probably answer it later, what do you think would have happened if this coup went through? But my thing is, like, it was over within a day. So, like, what were the stipulations? How did it end in a day? How, you know what I'm saying? Like, because where's the CIA involved?
Yeah, I know. It's hard knowing what's been going on in the world now and being so red pilled when like when the whole West, when the whole globalist elite have essentially started a war with Putin or funding a war against Putin, and then all of a sudden a coup occurs. It's hard to look at it and then be like, oh, we've got to be involved somehow in this, right? Like, it's not even outside of the realm of fucking what our own leaders have said. Lindsey Graham has said we should assassinate Putin. And even President Biden, I think, at one point said, like, that Putin's got to get out of there. He's a war criminal. Yeah. Didn't they even fucking put an arrest warrant out for him in the international courts?
Probably.
So like, it's not out of you shouldn't be, I don't know, you shouldn't be called a conspiracy theorist or something for thinking that we could have had a hand in this because they wanted to get rid of Putin forever.
So let's just see the end goal of the Wagner Group committing a coup against Putin. Putin wouldn't be in power anymore.
Right.
Who benefits? Now, I know what you were saying the other day, how the Wagner Group would be even more insane and would probably steamroll Ukraine. And, people don't understand what they're rooting for. But with Vladimir Putin out of the picture, who benefits? We do. So there's a lot of people, not just us,
not necessarily.
There's plenty of people who benefit. But
so as we normally say, me and you, man, like the reaction to things is sometimes more interesting than the thing itself. Although I don't know if that's true on this. This is really fucking interesting, in my opinion. This whole thing could be made into like a Netflix documentary or a movie, like the 2 days in Ukraine where the Wagner Group overthrew. Like this is, this could be made into something. But watching the reaction, like while we had some downtime in Montauk, I watched what was going on Twitter, and I mean, the people who know nothing on the war about the Joe from Jersey type people, all of a sudden become battlefield experts, and they've never referenced the Wagner Group before. They all of a sudden are like cheering them on and become somehow magical experts in the thing. At least me and you, like we admit at the beginning, so like I'm not the biggest expert in this field. That's why I'm like looking things up and reading from an article here to give you guys some information. People so quick to just cheer on Prigozhin and the Wagner Group, like overthrowing Putin because they've been told like Putin man bad and get rid of him at all costs.
It's truly that simple. It's truly that simple to these people that Russia man bad. If it meant Godzilla rising up from the ocean, trampling Tokyo, swimming on over to China, destroying China and India, and making its way to Russia to kill the bad Russian man. Yay, Godzilla!
Right.
That's it. It wouldn't matter. It would not matter what it is.
Yeah, but then later, they'd be complaining about how bad Godzilla is also.
Yeah, well, he voted for Trump, so.
And that's the point I'm making here. We don't know if Prigozhin would be worse than Putin. I mean, he might. Again, like I don't necessarily see hot dog stand salesman who leads gang of criminal psychopaths being put in charge of the largest nuclear arsenal in the world as a win. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see that as a win so far. At least Putin hasn't used the nukes yet.
Let's also break it down. Like this guy got out of prison, magically got a business, magically got a Michelin star restaurant, where world leaders visit, and then somehow became a millionaire mercenary. The guy's open to taking money,
right?
Whether it's above board or below board. Who does this guy? First off, mercenaries are soldiers of fortune. Their whole job is to do fighting for money, and they're hiring criminals who are, at the end of the day, criminals. They don't care where the money's coming from. They don't care what the agenda is. It's just big old fuck you, pay me. So this is a group of people that can be paid off. Were they paid off to commit this coup? We don't know, but possibly. But once in power, how long do you think it'd be until America started just paying them off, or China started paying just so they could get the agenda they want pushed out in Russia?
Yeah, maybe. Or again, like I'm trying to spin the counterpoint here. Like there's no guarantees that these guys wouldn't be drop like the globalist elite's agenda than Putin is, right? Like there's no guarantee. Again, they're hot dog criminal fucking people, right? So it's when you think about it too, I like to look back at history, and I'm a little familiar with the Soviet Union's history. I'm getting more familiar. I've been researching the Soviet Union. If you look back at World War One, dude, there's so many parallels to this scenario that occurred in World War One. Russia was in World War One, fighting against Germany. The Germans, in a sense, helped and funded Lenin and the communist rebellion that happened in Russia during World War One. So why would they do that? Because they wanted Russia to leave the war, which they were fighting against them. Once the communists started their uprising, the Russians had to leave World War One to go and fight their civil war. When their civil war was settled, who took over? Vladimir Lenin and the Soviet Union. Now, spin that around 20 years later, who fought each other again? The Germans and the Russians. But this time, the Russians were way fucking worse because they're the Soviet Union. And then they lasted 75 years as one of the most evil empires that ever existed. But you, the West, Germany, kind of like funded this insurrection or assisted this insurrection in Russia. And then it turned around and was even way worse for you. It created the Soviet Union. So I could draw the parallel here and be like, if that is the case, boy, please do not do that. Like, let's not get involved in funding fucking crazy psychopaths to take over. Because what if Prigozhin ends up forming a new version of the Soviet Union or something like that? And then that goes to last for the next fucking 100 years.
Yeah, well, the communists, that pretty much aligns with what the communists in Congress want. More communism, so.
All right, fair enough. Maybe that's their end goal after the, at the end of the day anyway. So, like we were saying before, this whole thing, it ended pretty quickly.
Which is so odd.
Yeah,
very
it's so
odd.
I now want to go to the next part of this. I want to give, like we were saying before, right? You never get to hear these guys' opinions on what's happening, right? So what I want to do next is I want to go and give everyone the words of Prigozhin and Putin after this has happened. So they've both spoken now. We're doing this on.
See, I didn't get to see this yet. Yeah,
that's fine. So you'll get to see it here now. So now a couple of days have passed as well. It's kind of where we have a little bit of benefit as well that we're recording this now, like as the dust is settled, and we can kind of see what both guys have said. Now they've both given statements. So this is from U.S. News, and this is pretty good. So Russia's Prigozhin, his own words on the mutiny. So Russian mercenary leader Prigozhin said on Monday in his first public comment since the ending of the mutiny that it had been intended to register a protest over the ineffectual conduct of the war in Ukraine, not to overthrow the government in Moscow. Following are the key quotes from his 11-minute audio message released on Telegram, the Telegram messaging app. That's something I've also noticed is that Prigozhin uses Telegram to kind of like talk to the Wagner Group, and you could just like jump in there and fucking see what he has to say, which is interesting.
Okay, odd, but all right.
Yeah. So on the causes, as a result of all intrigues and ill-considered decisions, this unit, Wagner, was supposed to cease to exist on July 1st. That leads me back to what we were saying before about how they kind of wanted to force them to sign contracts and join the Russian army proper. The Council of Commanders gathered, which brought all the information to the fighters, and no one agreed to sign a contract with the Ministry of Defense, as everyone knows perfectly well, that this would have led to a complete loss of combat capability. Experienced fighters, experienced commanders would simply be smashed and turned into meat. They would not be able to use their combat potential and combat experience. Those fighters who decided that they were ready to transfer to the Ministry of Defense did transfer, but this was a small amount of about 1 or 2%. The decision to transfer Wagner to the Defense Ministry was taken at the most inopportune moment. So what Prigozhin's saying here is like, hey, man, like we're in charge. We know what we're doing better than the Russian Defense Ministry does. And if we did that, if we transferred over, like all our guys are going to get blown the fuck up.
You know what it sounds like to me? It's a military group that didn't want any government involvement in it because the government will just fuck it up.
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, maybe to an extent, Prigozhin here is like an anarcho-capitalist, right? Like he knows, government oversight of things never works out well. So he's like, no. I'm going to keep control of my private military force here. And we're going to do things the way that we see fit. Because once the government gets involved, they fuck things up. And to be fair, he's probably not wrong, right? Like as we've covered on this
definitely
show,
right. He's definitely
ad nauseum, right. Once the government gets involved in anything, it doesn't run pretty well. And to be fair, now that I'm thinking about it, the Wagner Group has had some of the most success in Ukraine compared to like the general Russian army, which has had a hard time here and there. So he's got a legit beef, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Let's skip to
And also, let's remember
Sure.
the Russian Federation, right? That's what they were signing
Yes.
on to. Did
The
I make
defense
it?
ministry. So
Yeah.
they're going to be forced to sign into the Russian army, essentially. Officially.
Like that's not a corrupt area
Right.
either.
Right. It's
So
a big ask, right? Like you're asking a guy who has all this freedom and is the commander of his own fucking army to kind of give up his power.
yeah.
Uh,
And on
it,
top of it, let's the term. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it just popped into my head. Why in the Constitution is there well-regulated militia? Let's think for a moment. Why a well-regulated? Because in case the mayor or the governor of the governor of the state, or if the president of the state decided to turn on its people or to start doing stuff that is going to endanger the people, the well-regulated militia stands up, marches into DC, and tears it all down. Here is not to say it's a well-regulated militia. It's still thieves and murderers and criminals, but they have a well-regulated militia that's like, hey, Putin, we'll show up in Moscow real fucking quick.
I love it. I love the point you're making, buddy. It's an example, right, of the Second Amendment to some extent. Not exactly perfect, not exactly
no, it's not
the most
by any
clear
means.
cut, example or comparison. But right, like to an extent, like they're a militia, right? Like that says like we in America have a right to form a Wagner group if we wanted to, in a sense. Now, I don't think you have a right in Russia to form a Wagner group, but in Russia, they don't give a fuck. They just do what they want anyway, to an extent. Kind of whoever has the money and the guns is in charge.
I sell hot dogs now. I make military group.
I think this is a good lesson for just society and people in general that the Constitution's great, but it's just a piece of paper. Like who really has the power? Men with guns.
Yeah.
Right. And in this is a great example of that. Putin's a man with guns, and so is Prigozhin. Right. So because he had a lot of men with guns, 50,000 people count the Wagner Group in total. That's a gigantic army of men.
Go to a football stadium. That's 50,000 people right there.
You have power to affect the world and change things the way you want. So let's continue here and kind of get a little bit more of what exactly happened, what exactly he's saying. On the march. The march is the drive up to Moscow, like the actual coup of what was going on. He says the aim.
Reading?
Yeah, the aim was to prevent the destruction of the PMC and to bring justice to those persons who made a huge number of mistakes during their unprofessional actions. This was demanded by the public, and all the servicemen who saw us during the march supported us. During the entire march, which lasted 24 hours, one column went to Rostov, the other in the direction of Moscow. During a day, we traveled 780 kilometers to about 200 kilometers from Moscow. Not a single soldier on the ground was killed. We regret that we had to strike at aviation, but they hurled bombs at us and launched missile strikes. So now, if you've seen some of the videos, like the Russian Air Force did target some of the Wagner vehicles on the highway and blew them up. And the Wagner unit did fire back and I think shot down and killed like 17 or 18 Russian Air Force. So it get a little bit bloody.
Yeah.
But just compare this to like how a coup works in real life and how this shit works. Like you drive to the place where the government is,
and
you make your demands, and then on the way, this is a good lesson here, right? For people who say like, oh, all the, like Biden, right? He says, oh, these people talk about the tree of liberty must be refreshed. Like we have F-16s and nuclear weapons. No. In real life, if there's a coup or a revolution, this is how it happens, right? A bunch of guys get in their trucks with their guns. They start driving to the Capitol. And on the way, the government tells the regular army, hey, stop them. But then they run into each other. And what do? Maybe they fight, but maybe they talk. And they're like, hey, you don't necessarily always want to kill your countrymen. You'd be like, look, are you guys joining us or are you going to fight us? That's exactly what happened in Rostov-on-Don. He went to the military headquarters and he talked with the Russian army. And I could guarantee you a lot of them were like, we're kind of on fucking Prigozhin's side.
We're not killing you guys.
Yeah. So that's how a real insurrection or works. And that's also kind of disproves Biden's stupid fucking point about how and people make this point all the time about how I don't know, you wouldn't be able to fight the government because they have a military. Yeah, but those are people too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they would all, most of them probably would fight back against a revolution or whatever, but not all of them. That's not how life works. It's not fucking.
And on top of it, it's still 700 million versus 1 million.
Yeah, Exactly. Right. We were talking about this. Remember the other night we were saying like the American gun owner is the largest freestanding army in the world, and it's also like the only army that's never launched in a war of
an
aggression.
offensive, yeah.
It's a defensive army. Yeah, never been used. Yeah. So let's skip ahead. Why did Wagner stop? We turned around in order not to shed the blood of Russian soldiers. This is exactly what I was just saying. We stopped at the moment when the first assault detachment, which came from 200 kilometers from Moscow, deployed its artillery, did a reconnaissance of the area, and it became obvious that a lot of blood would be shed at the moment. Now, on the other hand, it's kind of admission that they kind of knew they were going to get fucked. Like they knew they were completely outgunned by Putin's, regular army. Therefore, we felt that demonstrating what we are doing, what we were going to do was enough. Our decision to turn around was based on two important factors. The first factor is that we did not want to shed Russian blood. The second factor is that we were registering our protest and not seeking to overthrow the government of the country.
See, that's an interesting line. Say, because this is coming from how I'm going to destroy this guy's name, Prigozhin, saying we weren't trying to overthrow the government. But then you leave it to Western media and American media. The coup, Russia's going down, So that's my biggest problem with this war. We're never going to get this full sense of truth of anything. Here we already we have a contradiction here already. Whether do we believe him or not is another thing. Whether we believe the media is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, so like if we want to take the hot dog salesman here's word for it, he's saying he didn't want to fucking overthrow the Russian government. But now this is also like after the fact, where he lost this thing in a sense. I mean, it's in his self-interest to say, no, I wasn't trying to overthrow Putin.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was just trying to make a protest. Right. Because
to stay alive too. Yeah.
Right. To be fair, man, from Saturday to Monday, no one had heard from this guy. Right. So like when he makes this statement on Monday, I'm like, okay, I thought for certain like this guy was,
he was hanging from a tree
already or something like that. So the fact that he's still around, like, yeah, he's trying to ensure his own survival, perhaps. But no, you're right. It doesn't mean maybe he's telling the truth. I don't know.
It's one of the two.
We're showing you both sides of the coin here. That's what we're doing. The audience can make up their minds for themselves. I'll wrap it up here real quick. At this time, Belarusian President Lukashenko extended his hand and offered to find solutions for the further work of the Wagner PMC within a legal jurisdiction. Our March of Justice highlighted a lot of the things we have talked about before, the most serious security problems throughout the country. So that's essentially where Prigozhin's story ends. He is in Belarus, apparently, hanging out there. So I don't know. Conspiracy theory time,
man. Yeah,
we'll get into Putin's comments in a little bit here.
I mean, conspiracy theory time. The Pentagon found 6 billion more to send to Ukraine, and then all of a sudden there's a coup.
Yeah.
Did the mercenary group get an injection of $1 billion or so?
6.4 billion, right?
Yeah,
Did that have something to do with it? I made a funny meme when this happened. I was like, $6.4 billion accounting error occurs. And then under that, I was like, Yevgeny Prigozhin, it's cowabunga time. The timing is suspicious on that regard.
It is. I just started watching the show on Netflix. I Think You Should Leave. It's the big meme from that show right now is that guy going, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? And there goes my shirt.
I was gonna say, I like how you're just disappearing into the green screen. That's
just
awesome.
Just a floating head. Zordon, like
reminds me of fucking Anchorman, where Brick like loses his
legs.
No!
Yeah. Fucked me over now. And so there was a meme where they were using a clip from I Think You Should Leave, and it was like the CIA going, no, stop, I gotta do something, I'm doing something here. So was there some type of interference, like they were marching into Moscow ready to fuck shit up, and the CIA was like, no, we have something going on here, man, like don't go in. It's the fog of war could be hiding anything, man.
It could be
anything.
And that's a great place to transition over to my other conspiracy theory, or
let's hear it.
This is the non-American conspiracy theory. Let's say this is the Russian conspiracy theory. The fog of war. This could have been them using the fog of war to move an army of 50,000 people to another area. right?
Mm.
This could have been, oh man, look, they're getting in a fight. 50,000 men are driving to Moscow. Now they
Right.
make a left turn and they head to Belarus. Where is Belarus geographically? It's right to the north of Ukraine, right? Where could Wagner have gone? They, now, which we'll get into Putin's comments here in a minute. If you wanted to move an army of 50,000 men without making things suspicious or alerting your enemy to where you're going, a coup is
Yeah.
happening and they're going to fight us.
Yeah.
And
American media is very easy to trick.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very easy to trick.
Forget about even the media. Like, you have to also trick the satellites who are watching your every movement and whatnot. Again, like, Belarus is right to the north of Ukraine. Belarus is very close to Kyiv. So now let's just say the conspiracy theory is Putin staged this whole thing in order to, like, lay a smoke screen cover for the Wagner Group to move into Belarus. And now they could maybe launch an attack against Kyiv, like, from very close.
Right.
And, now you have, like, your biggest, baddest motherfuckers going in there to try and attack. I don't know, but that's just another angle, another conspiracy theory. Yeah. The whole thing.
And then there's the one that Garrett posted. I just had it up, but I think we're going to get into
coming from
that
Garrett.
one.
It's got to be a good one.
Well, I mean, Garrett just posted. It's from at Willing Witness. Let me set the timestamp. If Putin, let me go to the actual thing because I have the stupid. 1 second there. 1 second there. Here we go. Let me set the timestamp. If Putin faked the coup to dupe NATO and out disloyal military inside Russia, not mention dupe Ukraine into advancing, thinking.
So that's another aspect too. I forgot about that. While this was happening, the Ukrainians did kind of try to launch little mini counterattacks.
Thinking Russia was weak, leaving their entire offensive, all while taking money from NATO's 6.2 billion payout through this loyal private militia, is straight out of genius military tactics that may go down as one of the greatest moves in military history.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, like,
if they
just
just
as
screwed
likely as
everybody
our
over,
other point of view conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of. I don't know. I'm thinking back to World War II. When before we launched the invasion of Normandy, the Allies built a fake army in northern England and they put George Patton in charge. And everyone knew Patton was the biggest, baddest motherfucker. And at the time, Patton was in trouble because he slapped a soldier. If you watch the movie, you would get the whole thing, right? And they made a fake army in northern England with, like, blow up tanks and shit like that, inflatable planes, inflatable tanks, and they moved Patton to England. So now think of it from the Germans' point of view. You know that the Allies are going to invade at some point. You don't know where. The Allies have built this huge army, this huge army in northern England, and put General Patton in charge. So Hitler's got to be thinking, hey, Patton's going to be in charge of the invasion, and it's going to be coming from northern Europe, like into Norway or something like that. But then in reality, it went to France. So you kind of, like, threw off your enemy. It's a good battlefield tactic. I don't know. Maybe there's some shit like that going on here to some extent. Yeah, it'd be fucking clever as hell, to be honest with you.
And just from that, maybe the militia group did take the 6 billion from the Pentagon,
and now Putin's got it, they pocketed it.
Now
they're going to use it against us. Blowback, as it would be called. Yeah, you never know, man.
That would be crazy.
So let's wrap this story up with the man himself chiming in on Monday as well. And I got this one from antiwar.com. I trust them the most. This is Scott Horton's website. And it says, Putin tells Wagner fighters he will uphold commitments to deal that ended mutiny. Putin on Monday night delivered his first address to Russia after Prigozhin's short-lived uprising ended. Putin thanked Russian citizens and his security forces for opposing the mutiny. A firm, unambiguous position in support of the constitutional order was taken by public organizations, religious denominations, leading political parties, in fact, the entire Russian society. Everyone was united and rallied by the main thing, responsibility for the fate of the fatherland, he said. Putin did not mention Prigozhin by name. Boy, he must be mad at Prigozhin. This was his hot dog guy back in the day. Don't forget, this is a major betrayal.
Wouldn't you be mad if you lost your hot dog guy?
I would be, man. I would, 100%. He says, organizers of the rebellion had betrayed their country. The Russian leader said that Ukraine and its Western backers wanted to see Russians kill each other and for the country to fall into civil war. I agree with that. They wanted, that's like not even like a controversial statement. That's exactly what everybody was fucking saying
Yeah.
on Twitter. They wanted Russian soldiers to kill each other, so that military personnel, civilians would die, so that in the end, Russia would lose, and our society would split, choke, and bloody civil strife, he said. They rubbed their hands, dreaming of taking revenge for the failures at the front and during the so-called counteroffensive that they miscalculated. Discussing the Wagner members, Putin said that the overwhelming majority of the fighters and commanders of the mercenary force are Russian patriots. Therefore, from the very beginning of the events, on my direct instructions, steps were taken to avoid a lot of bloodshed, he said. Putin thanked Belarusian President Lukashenko for mediating negotiations to end the crisis that led to a deal. Putin vowed to uphold the agreement by offering Wagner members the options of signing a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry, going home to their families, or traveling to Belarus, which is what we were just
And move
about.
the military up
Right.
there. Yeah.
The promise I made will be fulfilled. So, in a sense, Putin's offering a general pardon to everybody who participated in this, and you get three options: you could go home, you could join the regular Russian army, or you could go to Belarus. Now, like, go to Belarus is such a weird thing to offer.
So
like, hey,
I could pick up where I left off. I just got to start in Belarus.
Yeah, like, why would you? You know what I mean? Like, why would you go to? Why would you not go home?
Yeah,
but you would go to Belarus. You know,
yeah.
Is
that considered a red herring type of thing? Like, like they're trying to, or you could do this. Wink, wink.
Right, maybe. Yeah. I mean, this could all be bullshit at the end of the day. We're talking about
True.
a former KGB agent,
True.
and you really have no choice. I'm telling you, man. I think you could go to Belarus is like, yeah, we're just gonna remake the Wagner Group just over there, and have them fight for a different area.
Rebrand them.
Yeah,
rebrand them and pump them right back out.
Yeah,
62 billion into a new TikTok profile. Rebrand them. Gay flag for the fucking Twitter page.
Maybe,
and it's a whole new militia group.
Yep. So the exact deals of the brokered agreement aren't clear. The Kremlin issue said that Wagner fighters didn't take part in the mutiny, could sign contracts, but Putin's comment suggested all members of the mercenary force have the option. The Kremlin has said that Prigozhin will go to Belarus under the agreement. So my vibe is that he's kind of exiled. Prigozhin.
Yeah. I had read something somewhere that they were taking up exile and
right.
Yeah.
Like, read between the lines, like he's basically told, like, you could go live in this other country that's not Russia, and we won't kill you, but you can't come back, and you also can't be in charge of Wagner anymore.
And when we need you, we'll use you.
Right? Maybe, yeah. So they're talking about Prigozhin's thing here, right? So like saying the Russian missile strike killed 30 Wagner fighters, sparked the beef. Putin addressed the fact that there were Russian casualties, saying that the courage and self-sacrifice of the fallen heroic pilots kept Russia safe from tragic, destructive consequences.
What are you done reading, or you want a little bit more?
Reading here.
Okay, so I'll put in my comment. What I take the most out of Putin's comments is how quickly there was negotiations and how quickly peace was found, and how quickly the terms were set. You know what I mean? So you listen to anybody in mainstream media, Putin, and he is a mass murderer. He's a horrible person. See, look, he just cut my head off and my body's gone now. He is a terrible person, but like, the whole idea that we can't broker peace between Russia and Ukraine is 100% bullshit. You don't have to like him. You don't have to love him. I fully believe Donald Trump could settle this in 24 hours. I guarantee you Putin is more than ready to sit down and have peace talks. The only reason why it's not is because every fucking global elitist country around the world is pumping Ukraine with so much money that Zelensky would be stupid to back out of this war because his payday would be over.
Yeah, I could not have said that better.
Yeah.
This shows that, right? Like, I mean, come on, if Putin is willing to negotiate with a guy who's trying to overthrow him,
yes,
as much as they want to say, I wasn't trying to overthrow him. Come on. Yeah. We know that that's probably bullshit. Yeah. Then he's willing to negotiate with anybody and sort it out. Again, doesn't mean he's a good guy. It shows that he's like logical to some extent. That people, and he can be reasonable
at the very end of the day, because we know the left and the media and the administration wants dead Russian soldiers. They do. That's their game plan. They want dead Russian soldiers. And like they tried baiting Trump on CNN. This all comes down to people can stop dying. If we fix this, no one else has to die. Can you tell me who you want to win this war? I don't want anybody else to die. That's what I want.
Yeah, it puts a real ding in the narrative that the Putler narrative. I don't know if you've ever heard that word.
No, never.
Right? People call him Putler, like Putin Hitler. Right? Like it puts a ding in that narrative that he's Hitler on some psychotic quest to form a new empire where he rules the world.
Yeah.
If he was, he wouldn't. Hitler wasn't open to negotiation.
Yeah,
because he was on the psychotic quest. It shows that Putin is not on the same thing. The Putler thing doesn't make any sense. Yeah, like the guy is susceptible to leverage in a negotiation, and you could kind of get something out of him. And
at this point, probably just wants to be left alone.
Yeah, that's again at the end of the day. Yeah, man, maybe Putin was a libertarian after all. Yeah. So that's the story. I thought it was really interesting, and it just again shows the insanity of this fucking war and the policy and how quickly things could go south. At any moment, your fucking government could be overthrown, and some hot dog.
Not here though.
Could be
Not here though.
Yeah.
So
let's move on to the next topic of the night, which is there are some similarities. It's kind of going to have to do with war as well. I'll let you kind of go on your rants here more, because I talked a lot here, Captain.
Yeah, that's fine.
But the next story is, like we were saying, there has been a leak, which this already kind of leaked to begin with, of Trump's documents. And now audio has leaked of him having a conversation with people at Mar-a-Lago. And let's listen to it, and then we'll give our thoughts after.
These are bad, sick people.
That was your coup, against you.
Well, it started right at the beginning.
Like when Millie's talking.
Real quick, I just want to say, I'm saying it's a little similar to some extent, right? I mean, even like the second line here, the staffers talking about that was your coup against you, right?
Yeah.
What they're talking about. So yeah, similar topics there.
About, you were going to try to do a coup. No, they were trying to do that before you even were sworn in. That's right. Trying to overthrow your election.
Well, with Millie, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I just found. Isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, Except it is like highly confidential, secret. This is
there lies the problem.
But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time,
she'd send it. No, she'd send
We
it.
were so close to him giving us some real information there.
Yeah, I
We start
know.
saying like you attack.
Yeah.
To Anthony Weiner, the pervert.
Please print.
By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it, and he said he wanted to attack Iran and what? These are the
You did.
papers.
It's pretty,
This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
Declassify.
figure out
it. See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, but this is classified.
now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, it's so. Look, here and I have, and you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
It's
you.
incredible, right?
No,
Hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
I'm joined now by CNN senior political commentator Adam Kinzinger.
Oh man, I like how
See, go ahead.
I like it real quick, but I'll just start with this. I like how, we don't often hear Trump talk in like a very private, confidential setting. But when he does, he sounds exactly the fucking same like he does when he's talking like an
It's
idiot
him.
out on the trail. And
It's
that's just him. Yeah, this
Yeah.
confirms to me first point. This
Yeah.
confirms that God damn it, that's just the way he is.
There's no like one-on-one with Trump where he's like, "Hey man, what's up? How you doing?" Like,
Right. Like he's like some deep intellectual
Yeah.
really behind it all. Yeah.
but I love like this is how, I mean, this goes back to an age-old saying on this show, Trump derangement syndrome. It's literally the ex-president talking about how the military was trying to start a war under the president's nose without his okay, which is highly illegal, treasonous, I would even say. I could be wrong, but I would say treasonous. And they're like, look, he's it doesn't matter what he's talking about. He talked about secrets with staffers. What else did he give away? You know,
that's the way I look at this.
If it was some, you know, Saudi Arabian consulate and was like, all right, the nuclear codes are 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, all right, we got a fucking problem now, you know. But and it just how coincidental is it that there's leaked recordings of Trump
right CNN too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, who else would you leak it to? But how suspicious is it that, you know, the guy from Ukraine is like, oh, I got 17 recordings of Joe and Hunter Biden talking about this, that, and the next, and money laundering and stuff. And we don't listen to that. But all of a sudden, boom, we got audio. So if anybody starts talking about tapes, well, we have a Trump tape right here. This shows that Trump is guilty. We don't have the Biden tapes. That's all just, you know, disinformation. Yeah. It's too suspicious to me that like these two cases are running so parallel to each other, and like Trump's looking at like 400 years in prison, and like Hunter Biden's just a slap on the wrist. Joe Biden's doing the same thing, but Trump's on trial for it. It's interesting that, you know,
there's like dueling court cases, and they release dueling things to like fight each other in the cycle.
Not to mention that by leaking this information, that is information pertinent to a case, right? That was supposed to be heard on trial. That was supposed to be heard at the trial. That was supposed to be heard during the defense or the prosecution. That whole lawyer lingo, I don't understand.
I get it.
So by leaking this, you are now coercing the jurors to think a certain way.
Yeah, before like contaminating them, right? Like now they know before. Like this hasn't been able to be presented in the setting of court to be used as evidence. Right now, like, you know, ahead of time, they're going to form their own opinions on it ahead of time. And to be honest with you, like that might help Trump, to be honest.
Well, to be perfectly honest with you, if it was anybody but Trump, if it was a normal case, you know, me and you get involved in some white collar crime, we embezzle some money or something, and this audio leaks of us, our lawyer is going to go to the judge and say, we need to dismiss this case, throw this case out. And 10 to 1, depending on how severe the case was, it would get thrown. We're two nobodies who managed to embezzle money or do a white collar crime. It would get thrown out. But because it's Trump, nope. I guarantee you there'll be more leaks.
Yeah, probably. On the other hand, I think this, at least in my opinion, I'm going to say that kind of like leads me to think that this case and these cases are more so cases in like of public opinion as instead of like real cases. And my guess is that all of the cases against Trump, and there's going to be more, which we'll be talking about in the future, guarantee, but in August, keep an eye for that. They're all going to go nowhere. He's going to, you know, he's going to be the Teflon Don again, but he'll have had to go through case after case, and he'll look bad, and he'll look, you know, like an idiot like this one and whatever. And they still think like it's still propaganda. They still value propaganda. Propaganda still works, right? They're going to win over some people who are not as deep down the rabbit hole as us, and with stuff like this. Now, the point I want to make on this entire thing here is that what you were kind of saying before, everyone's talking about, look, he admits he's showing classified information to people. It's crazy. Like he, you know, the documents, he had the documents. And to be fair, like a lot of people, that's what they're focused on. They're not actually focused on what the fuck he was even talking about.
Yeah.
Which is that Milley, General Milley, Mark Milley, the guy in charge of the entire fucking military and the Department of Defense, basically proposed to him to go to war with Iran, to attack Iran. And I've made that point on Twitter, to which people then turn around and be like, well, we have a contingency plan to go to war with everybody. And it was Trump who wanted to go to war with Iran. Like, yeah, that's what he's saying they were saying about it. That's literally, you're just doing the same thing that they were doing to him. You're just doing it now again. That's what he's saying. He's saying that they were saying he wanted to go to Iran, to war with Iran. But look, here's the proof. They wanted to go to war with Iran, and they were pitching me on the whole thing, and essentially I said no. And now people are like, well, no, that's not the case or whatever. This is your leak, right? Of a confidential, not a confidential, but like a setting where he's not assuming, I'm guessing, he's being recorded, and he's talking like in confidence to people. Honestly, like, why would he be lying? Like, in my opinion, he's telling the truth here because he's not in some sort of political thing. He's like bullshitting with friends, trying to be cool. He literally at the end is like, isn't that cool? You know what I mean? So it only, at least in my opinion, it only proves to me that they did want to go to war with Iran. They were trying to pitch him on the idea of going to war with Iran. Don't forget, like, there was a lot of beef with Iran when he first became president. He did order the strike on Soleimani and blew him up when he came to Iraq. So, you know, how and we criticized him at the time, I think, for that. I didn't think it was the greatest to do. We said, I remember us saying,
well, remember right away we were going to World War III,
right? And I also remember me and you were like, we're not going to shed a tear over fucking Soleimani, but at the same time, like, hey, you know, maybe blowing up the other guy's head of the military, not a good idea. We were saying at the time. But this, you know, at least Trump didn't go to war with Iran, though. It seems like they possibly did.
I got two more takeaways from this now. One, these files prove that Milley and the military tried to commit a coup against the sitting president. So that qualifies for the big raid. We need to get these papers away from him, right? We need to get these documents so we can hide and censor this coup that we were trying to start. And then number two, he says it in there. He goes, this is proof.
Proves my case.
This proves my case. So why would they leak this specific audio? Because it's the part of his case that would make his case.
Why did he keep these documents too? At the end of the day, like there's people, I would say, even in the Trump crowd, trying to be like, oh, you know, these documents, it's no big deal, it's nothing. No, I think these documents are actually important, and he kind of admits it there himself. Like, no, he kept some documents that prove that he's not a bad guy. At the end of the day, right? And he tried to keep them as leverage.
This is all
that's
about,
how I'm viewing it.
This is all. What was I saying? The cover-up's bigger than the act or whatever?
Something like that. Sure.
Yeah. This is part of the cover-up. This is the part of the cover-up here that we're looking into.
It's fucking espionage, man. It's deep state crazy shit.
It all is espionage.
Make another good movie one day.
Yeah. Dude, one day we're gonna see a hell of a movie. We wonder, maybe they'll get Mark Wahlberg to play Trump or something.
That would be pretty awesome. All right, let's go on, wrap things up here. Got some tweets of the week. I know
I got none because I was on vacation, and the last place I visit when I'm on vacation is Twitter.
I don't blame you, buddy. I get it. All right, so I got a bunch here though in the meantime, and they kind of go, you know, they'll kind of touch on these topics. They're also a little bit different at the same time. And this is from Brian Krasenstein. This is a reply to another tweet where Mostly Peaceful Memes says, you're more upset people are reporting that gay men are exposing themselves to 5-year-old kids than you are that gay men are exposing themselves to 5-year-old kids. To which Brian Krasenstein goes, number one, seeing a man naked on a bike isn't going to have much of an impact on any kid. They have likely see their father or brother naked before. Number two, sharing an uncensored video of a naked man on a bike to an audience of possibly 30 million kids on Twitter is arguably worse than riding a bike naked in front of a kid, or two, in a planned event that the kid's parent took them to. Number three, there are much, much worse things the average kid will see or hear online and offline in a typical week.
That third one's not wrong. Not wrong, but the rest of it is.
You know, like, this is his defense. To him kind of dismissing a pride parade, this guy twerking in his underwear in front of children. He's like quadrupling down. Where the fuck are we right now? In society, you know, I mean, like, can you just be like, you know, don't twerk in front of kids? Not a good idea. You don't need to like look for other whataboutisms and other things that don't have anything to do with it. It's not good if you're trying to fucking defend it. I don't know what you are. Like, you're some sort of evil villain.
As far as I'm concerned with the whole, and this isn't an attack on the gay community, because we're actually getting to a threshold where the gay community doesn't want this. You know, this is the first time I'm seeing during the Pride Month that the gay community is pushing back on all this nonsense.
I think I told you, man, a friend of ours even told us, like, you know, like, I want to go to Pride, but I kind of feel little bit weird, or I feel like she felt like weird about asking people to go with her because of like the backlash going on. Like to me, that's unfortunate. But at the same time, that's also kind of a sign of like public stigma works too, to an extent.
Yeah. If it was a regular parade with rainbow floats, cool. Nobody's got a problem with that. It's naked men and women in front of children. And if you're the one saying attacking children or grooming children is a good thing, you're part of the problem. You're no difference than back in Germany in the 40s or whatever, sympathizing with the Nazis. The people who were in favor of Hitler.
The Hitler Youth Program is great. It's a good way for a kid to form, good morals in our Nazi society. Yes. I hate, the Nazi trope is very overused, but my God,
it is
a lot of good.
But this is the same thing. This is the same thing as far as I'm concerned. You're in favor of the Nazi Youth Program.
Yeah, to an extent. All right, let's go on to the next one. And get ready to get angry, folks. This is from the New York Post.
Oh, God.
Mamma mia! New York City rules crackdown on coal wood-fired pizzerias. Must cut carbon emissions up to 75%. Wow, man. I mean, I don't know if you saw. Yeah, I don't know if you saw. Scott Libido went to City Hall yesterday and he threw pizza over the fucking wall. He was yelling at them. Come on, I mean,
there's nothing. New York and California is going to get to a point where there's just nothing's going to be sacred. It does not matter. It's only just going to drive everybody out of the state.
Yep.
It is. And you know what? Better off. I always said the way New York is going, Manhattan is going to be either a ghost town or just a 1%er playground. And that's the way it's going. There's no reason to even have a business in New York anymore,
especially after COVID. How they, the businesses got decimated by that. Now you want to look, man. If there's one great thing about New York City, it's us fucking Italian gindaloons and our pizza there, right? Yeah. We make good motherfucking pizza in Manhattan and in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, etc. And some of those pizzas are made by coal and wood fire. To be honest with you, that's some of my favorites. Right, you get a nice wood fired fucking pizza, but now they want to target wood fired pizza in a time where like you just went through a downturn in the economy because of climate change. What this is going to not affect climate change in any fucking form whatsoever, because one city in the world decides to not make pizza a certain way is going to save fucking the earth from climate change. What a preposterous, ridiculous thing to put forward. Like you're not serious people if this is what you're doing. To be honest with you, you're not.
And they're sitting in boardrooms coming up with this stuff.
Yes, they are. That's the scariest part about the whole thing. All right, let's move on to the next one.
I am glowing over here with the sun setting.
I feel you. This is from Amiri King. Wrap your mind around this shit. The Proud Boys demasked members of a group that have terrorized minorities, waved Nazi flags, spewed homophobia, everything the left claims to hate. The absolute trifecta of what they stand against. They finally have their Scooby-Doo moment. The proverbial boogeyman is center stage. We literally have their faces. And what do? I haven't seen one mainstream media outlet covering it. No liberal politicians demanding answers. No workplaces, schools, or institutions recognizing these individuals and publicly condemning their actions. Mainstream media had the city bike woman completely fired from her job, doxxed, and crucified by dinner time. Do you remember that? The woman who there was these like young black guys that were like trying to grab a bike from a woman in Manhattan for like one of those city bikes. And like they were trying to grab the bike from her and she's recording and she's pregnant and she's like, hey, so you're stealing my bike. This whole thing fucking occurs. And then like the mainstream media goes on and be like, this racist Karen, like finds out where she lives and gets her fired from her fucking job. And then it turns out that like she paid for the bike. She proved that they were trying to steal it from her and they did this all to her. But in retrospect, when, if you don't know what we're even referring to here, there was a video of like Proud Boys and MAGA people
seen that.
Ran into like Patriot Front style people who are like always masked. Like you never see what their faces are like. Everyone's always saying like, these guys are feds. And they basically get into a fucking fight with these guys. You're right over there, buddy. Don't worry.
Yeah,
don't worry
the sun is coming right into the camera.
Don't worry about it, man.
Yep.
You look like a ghoul over there. So long story short, the Proud Boys, MAGA guys get into a fight with the fucking white nationalist Patriot Front guys, and they rip their faces off. Not their faces off. They rip their masks off, and you can now see who they clearly are. No one tried, but besides conservatives and people on the right who have been like Twitter salutes trying to figure out who the fuck these guys are. No one has tried to do that. Why? Why haven't they tried to do that? Give me your take, Captain, please.
No, because they're part of the agenda. They're needed. Those are no better than Antifa and the people who are leaving the bricks around during the BLM riots and stuff. They need these people. So we always suspected them to be feds. They dress like fucking feds. Everything about them reeks of feds. And now I think anytime these people march, what you do is you run up on them and you
rip
start
their
them
fucking
asking,
mask off.
Take away their show the world, show the world their identity. The agenda calls for these people because the Proud Boys aren't the Nazi group that the media makes them out to be.
Yeah, and if you watch that video, like the MAGA Proud Boys, they're like yelling at them, "Get the fuck out of here, you fucking racist!"
That one redneck, fuck out of here!
Yeah, fuck out of here, just over and over and over again, man. Like, I think this was a great tweet because it kind of like really lays out the whole thing, and it also just exposes this event was like a glitch in the Matrix, to an extent, right? Like, it shows how there's more to. We're not crazy. Right, like
it's a two-tier justice system.
There's more to shit like that going on than meets the eye.
Yeah,
and this kind of fucking exposed it. Anything else you want to say on this one before I move on to the next one?
No, this is just infuriating.
Probably on that in of itself. All right, this is a follow-up to that, and things are going to get even more crazy. This is from Adam Kinzinger, where he says these people, all blue checks, are celebrating a seemingly MAGA assault on federal officers. Now, I don't know what this really is, but take a gander at the comments of patriots who love America. Hold on. Adam Kinzinger, the fucking former congressperson, just said are celebrating a seemingly MAGA assault on federal officers.
So are we admitting that they're feds?
I guess so, right? He's like saying the quiet part out loud.
So to damage the MAGA name at all costs possible, they are now all the
outing.
They're outing their own operatives to say MAGA people are bad. That's crazy.
Like they're outing their operatives and then trying to spin it as like, look, the MAGA people are assaulting the police. I thought you guys are supposed to be pro-police. Like this is some sort of own or like gotcha moment. Look, I don't know. Maybe he's being sarcastic. It's hard to tell through a tweet.
No, the left is generally stupid.
I think me and you were both beyond the point of giving people the benefit of the doubt. So, man, that's kind of a mask off, no pun intended, moment there for Adam Kinzinger.
That is ridiculous. We're really going to admit the operatives just to. Okay.
All right. Two more. This is a good one. This is from the deplorable veteran. I saw this morning while I was taking a shit after I woke up. The deplorable veteran goes, a typical day in my life. I wake up in my taxed home that is on my taxed property, and I brew a cup of coffee that is taxed at the grocery store. Then I start my vehicle that is taxed and go to the gas station to fuel up with gasoline that is taxed by the state. On my way to work, I sometimes listen to talk radio where I hear elected representatives speak, which their salaries are made out of our taxes. I arrive at work that takes out federal taxes and eat lunch from a restaurant that takes taxes out. After the end of a long day at work, I drive home on roads that are taxed. I sit down and watch TV for a minute that I pay taxes on each month when I pay the bill. I end the day knowing that all of my tax money is going elsewhere and not helping out the struggling and hardworking Americans. See the problem?
No, Ukraine needs that money. Come on.
I followed up to this and I was like, and I read this on a phone that I bought and I paid taxes on when I
pay a bill monthly. Yeah.
This is like a great, funny little story here that also kind of like shows
everything.
You pay like taxes 9 times on $1, but then they're like, but then the rule is that you can't pay taxes twice on the same money, but that's the biggest farce of all time. One more and we're out of here. And this one is from Scuva Steve. And it's a quote tweet, and it says, the Barbie dream house has mysteriously appeared in Malibu. So this is like a promotional thing. And Scuba Steve says, the Oppenheimer marketing team has an opportunity to do the funniest thing possible. What is he talking about? He's talking, the Oppenheimer movie about Oppenheimer who invented the nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
He's saying like, look, the Barbie dream house, like there's a Barbie movie coming out. They
Yeah.
made a Barbie house in real life to promote the movie. The Oppenheimer marketing team should drop a
make
nuke
a bomb.
should drop a nuke on the Barbie house and be like, it's Oppenheimer in
Promotion.
theaters, July 21st or whatever it is. I thought that was
That's
pretty
hysterical.
fucking funny, and that went pretty viral. A lot of people were quote tweeting him for that one.
Looks like a pretty fire house, if I got to say.
It does, man. It looks like a good time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to take the Montauk fucking party out there.
Yeah, one day.
In future years. So that's all I got. Any other thoughts?
That's
anything
all
else you
I
want to
got.
share here, Captain?
The unmasking is just infuriating. It's a lot of interesting stuff. I think we covered it pretty well today.
I think we did. We did a good job.
So let's see what craziness transpires through this week and weekend, and we'll come back at you with more information.
All right.
So, Doom Nation, thank you. It's been another episode of the Two Doom Men podcast. As always, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Adios, guys.